going to the NFL on our next topic is, as Patriots fans, we're still trying to figure out who the next quarterback is going to be if it's not Cam Newton. And one of the players that's been rumored that the Patriots have some interest in that they would have to trade for is Marcus Mariota, the current backup quarterback for the Raiders. We obviously saw him just a couple of years ago with Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill came in for him midway through the 2019 season, and Tannehill just kind of went off, and Mariota hadn't started for Tennessee the rest of the season. Came in once, I believe, for Derek Carr this past year, played pretty well. Mariota certainly got talent. What do you think is Mariota for a fit for the Patriots?
Well, there's two questions to this Mariota question in itself, and that is the player and the contract. So the player himself is definitely worth it. I think especially with a team that needs a quarterback right now, this is a guy that has a lot of starts in the NFL. He started over multiple seasons. He's had a couple of pretty good seasons. Obviously, he tailed off a little bit there at the end of his time in Tennessee, but I still think he's a serviceable quarterback. He's still fairly young. And saying that, having been in the NFL for multiple years and having all that experience and still being fairly young, I believe he's only 28. So he's still got plenty of time. He's still got plenty of tread on the tires. So the player himself, I think, is yes. That's a yes. And we're talking about a former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback at the University of Oregon. This guy can really play if you put him in the right system. I think obviously he's gotten to play the best position in the NFL over the last year or two, and that's backup quarterback because you get to do nothing and get paid a ton of money. But I mean, I think he's one of those guys that is probably looking for a chance to become a starter again. This would be his chance to come in and become a starter. I wouldn't actually mind trying him out at least for 1 year again. And so that brings me to the second part. Like I said, the contract. And here's the thing. I don't think his contract is worth it because it's so incentive laden right now. And I think that's why you're seeing the Las Vegas Raiders trying to shop him so much. Because here's the thing. If he gets on the field more than 60%, he's going to get a huge bonus. So obviously as a starter, you're going to be on the field more than 60%. So right now his cap hit is just $10 million as he is right now. However, if he comes in and plays over 60% of the snaps and even leads you into a playoffs, the cap hit can be worth $22 million or $25 million, I believe. So that's a huge cap hit. And so I think they said $22 million if he wins the Super Bowl. So, okay, if he wins the Super Bowl for the Patriots, I'll take that. $22 million cap hit for a Super Bowl is worth it. However, they said if we have a similar season like we just seen with Cam Newton, the cap hit would still be about $19 million. And I don't think at that point he would be worth it. So it's one of those things, I think, would he be willing to restructure his contract to come to a place like New England, to be able to start again and to maybe be able to, get his career going again? And we've seen quarterbacks restructure their contracts. Obviously, Tom Brady restructured his contract multiple times here in New England. Drew Brees just restructured his contract. It happened, so it's not unheard of. Is that something that Marcus Mariota would be willing to do to become a starter again? So those are my two questions. The player, yes. The contract, no, not in its current state.
Yeah, it's a very good point about the incentives. I actually didn't even look at that part when we were getting ready for the show. I did see that, his base salary is $10.725 million, so which is not that much for a starting quarterback until you talk about those incentives like you mentioned. The other thing is he's a free agent after this upcoming year. So I think it depends on what you have to trade to get Marcus Mariota. If you have to only give up a third-round pick, which this year it's the compensatory pick for Tom Brady, so wouldn't that be interesting? But if you only have to give up a third-round pick for him, I do it just because it's 1 year. Even if it's $19 million, to me, I think it's worth it because if you're going to go get Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to cost 20-something million now, and it's a couple of years on the contract. He's going to be, I think he's got 2 more years left on his deal, if not 3. You go trade for another quarterback. Most of the top 10 to 15 highest paid quarterbacks are near $20 million a year. So I think if you're going to go trade for a quarterback, you're probably going to be paying that price tag anyway. So unless you want to bring in a guy like a Fitzpatrick or another, lower priced free agent bridge quarterback and then go get a quarterback in the first round of the draft, you're going to have to trade up. So then you're going to be giving up assets anyway. Why not do this Mariota deal? And then maybe once you get him, you might attract other free agents, because one thing that we're starting to talk about with the Patriots is they have all this cap space, but who's going to come to New England if you're a receiver or even if you're a defensive player when you don't really have, a established quarterback on your roster? Are you going to want to go play with that team if you're, Allen Robinson or Kenny Galladay or one of those other receivers that's a free agent? So you get Mariota in here, you get an established quarterback, you bring the receivers in, and then that might help Mariota say, I'll sign an extension for another year, wipe out the incentives. I'll sign an extension where maybe you pay him 15 this year and 15 or 20 next year or something like that. And then you have the receivers in. So you got Mariota locked up for 2 years. You got the receivers in free agency, and then you don't have to draft somebody this year in the first round. You can wait till next year, or you can get a project quarterback that you can develop over the 2 years. So I think this is a decent option for the Patriots if they don't have to give up more than a third-round pick. Anything higher than that, I think, is a lot.
No, I agree. I would give up a third-round pick for Marcus Mariota. I think that would be worth it. Draft picks, you never know if they're ever going to pan out. So if you can get a consistent player right now for a third-round pick, I think that would definitely be worth it. I'm just not so sure he would be worth it at $19 million. I mean, no. Let me change that up. With the Patriots money, let's pay him $19 million because we need a quarterback right now. Yeah. But here's the thing. I think the Patriots have just been stingy. They've been stingy with their money throughout history, and they really don't spend it like that. So I think you might have already seen them make a move unless they have something planned for the draft. But in my opinion, there's not really a great draftable quarterback in this draft class, especially a first or second round talent like your Justin Herbert was last season. So I think if you were going to make a move to get a quarterback in the draft, I think that it should have been done last season to get a Justin Herbert. But what I would like to see them do is move up to try to get Devontae Smith from Alabama. I know he's going to go high, probably in the top 6 picks, probably. But, if you're going to move up, we're sitting around the 15th pick right now. So it's not that hard to be able to move up into that top 6, to be able to give yourself a chance to get a Devontae Smith, a young, talented receiver who's going to come in and be able to, be one of your top receivers immediately. And you clearly need to fill that void in receiver. So we need some talent. So I wouldn't mind them having Marcus Mariota and bringing Marcus Mariota in. I wouldn't also mind Fitzmagic. Fitzmagic on the right price if we can get some weapons. But I think the bigger thing is, and I think it's a bigger question, honestly, than the quarterback situation, is having weapons, because no matter who you have, you need some weapons to throw them to. So we have to fill those positions first. We need a tight end. We need a few wide receivers, and we arguably need another running back in our stable. So I'd like to see them try to fill those positions, but we're obviously going to have to fill this quarterback position going forward, and Marcus Mariota might be that stopgap player that you see come to New England.